Yes, I am back, and I am back in black. So it's been a while since I've spoken to everybody. Been off the air for about a week, but it feels good to be back. So today we're going to be talking about a lot of things. First of all, what do we have to say? Welcome to Just Common Sense. My name's Brian Harrison, and that's what this is about. Common sense. Something that the left does not have, especially up in D.C. So today I've got a guest, Jerry Dangler. He is here to talk about many things. First of all, he was in the Marines. He will be talking with you a little bit about that. But once a Marine, always a Marine. So he's still a Marine, even though he's semi-retired, doing other things, we'll say. Yeah. Never retired, always ready to roll.
Correct.
Always ready for duty, too, if you want to take him back. That being said... Yeah, he says no to that. But that being said, just want to go over a couple things today. We're going to be talking about a variety of things. First of all, let's talk about the Second Amendment. Second Amendment is very important. There's been a lot of stuff going on with that right now. And again, very, very, very important to talk about this. We're going to talk about the Second Amendment, what the Constitution says, what people don't realize. Now, getting into this, I would love to talk to Jerry about this and get his perspective on this. Just to let you know, we were out target practicing today. I'm going to put those videos out there a little bit later, and we will see those. I've got him shooting. I've got myself shooting, so we will see that a little bit later on. But Jerry, just give applause to Jerry. So, yes, want to thank you for stopping in. That's great. And let's talk to Jerry. So what is your thoughts, Jerry? What do you feel about the Second Amendment? Let's hear, first of all, when you were in the Marines and everything about the Marine Corps.
Well, can't tell you everything about the Marine Corps because we do have a time constraint here. But we will talk about that a little bit. But one of the things about the Marine Corps was it, in addition to, giving me many other qualities that have carried forth for me in life and helped me with a great deal of success. One of the other things about the Marines is that they did give me a much stronger foothold for my respect and love for the Second Amendment. And I know that you had mentioned we were going to speak about the Second Amendment. And the Marine Corps, I have to say, is probably, as a service, the one that does, more marksmanship training than the other services would do. So it's probably not, unique for you to hear me say that the Marine Corps is where I kind of got my love for going out and shooting and practicing my Second Amendment rights.
That's great. I understand that. My father, as we know, was in the Marines, I should say, and he actually taught me to shoot when I was a very young child. And I'd like to go into that a little bit with gun safety and things like that, because first of all, we hear about kids, unfortunately, getting guns, shooting themselves and things like that. I myself, here's my opinion. I think if you have a gun in the house, you need to take your kid at a certain age. I shot when I was 10 years old, learning how to shoot, learning safety, learning to respect that gun, and learning to respect others. Now, that being said, I wasn't one to sit there and see the gun when my parents weren't in the house, I should say. We didn't have safes in the day. It was a little different. I'm glad they have safes for children and all. That's great. But that being said, I would look at that gun and I knew better to grab that. I only went out with my father and I target practice. And then there's other parents that take their kids out hunting and stuff. I get that. So again, gun safety is important. We're going to talk about that in the videos. You'll see that, what we talked about. But go ahead. What's your other feeling? There is something in the Constitution. For those of you who do not know the Constitution, there is something about the government and guns and everything else. Not saying we're going to go there, but there's... What was the purpose of guns back in the Second Amendment? You go ahead. I know you're going to go there. Yes, he will go there. Go for it.
And actually, it's interesting you mentioned about how your father introduced you to guns at a young age, and the first thing that he did was safety. I have two daughters that one is in her 20s now, the other one's 19, and their first experience going to the range, one was 8, one was 9. And the first thing we did was extreme coverage of safety. So that no matter whether you're in the Marines, whether you're a police officer, just a civilian that enjoys shooting and everything like that, safety is penultimate when you're shooting. And so that's just something that I fully believe in. And I agree with Brian. The availability of safeguarding your firearms nowadays with gun safes, and even the little small gun vaults you can put into a nightstand and access with fingerprints. the opportunity to provide a safe environment in a home with firearms is, much more available than it ever has been. So go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, I had I wanted to go somewhere with that too,
Sure.
because think about this, guys. If you have a child out there and you don't teach them about guns, and when you're not around, what are they looking at? They're looking at that going, wow, that's something I'm not supposed to touch, because you have not taught them properly the safety of that gun and the dangers of that gun. Very dangerous to have a gun in your hand as a child, because if you don't have the proper instructions and learn safety about it, you don't know what you're doing. And guess what? We've heard enough of it on the news. And that goes back out to what I said: safety, parents making sure these guns are locked up and safe. But even though they're locked up and safe, take your children out, teach them how to shoot, make sure they understand all this, because they're going to be looking at you and saying, well, my parents are out shooting. Why am I not allowed to go out and shoot? Oh, they're not at home. Let's see what we can do to get into that safe.
Well, also, Brian,
And that's on you.
When you're teaching the safety to the kids too, what
Yeah.
it does is it takes away the thrill factor, and it does
Correct.
instill in them the importance of the safety, and also what a dangerous weapon that it really is. And that's why it's so important to go over the gun safety with the kids, because if you don't, they're curious. And anybody that's curious about something, like you said, oh, wow, this is something I'm not supposed to touch. This is something I'm not supposed to pick it up. So what's a kid going to do? They're going to touch it. They're going to pick it up. But once they understand what it is, how it's used, and, for lack of a better term, I just, as far as gun safety, I put the fear of God in my kids that, if they came across a handgun, they were not to touch it. They were to find an adult and let that adult know that they found one, or if they saw one, just say, hey, you know what? I saw a handgun over there. I saw a rifle over there. And, leave it to the adult to handle the situation. So, from a very young age, my kids were taught that you do not touch one unless an adult is there with you and the adult says that it's okay to do it. And that's one of those things that will carry on into later life, because kids grow up to be adults. And if you learn good habits when you're a kid, you carry those habits into adulthood with you. And so learning gun safety at a young age actually means that you have a better chance that you'll practice gun safety when you're an adult.
That's true. Very true. I actually witnessed something the other day, and I want to bring this up to everybody. So I pulled into a gas station the other day. I saw a driver getting beeped at. She pulls up in her SUV, and all of a sudden I saw road rage issue. Ugh, let me speak right, guys. But anyway, he pulls up behind her, blocks her in. Well, guess what? He gets out of the car in a threatening manner, runs up to her car door. She was terrified, in danger of her life. That's exactly what she was feeling. Well, guess what? She was actually carrying her gun. She has a concealed and carry. And I saw what she did. She grabbed the gun, held it up, not aiming at the guy, just letting him know, be aware, I have a gun and you're getting ready to break in my car. That's endangering her life. She has a right to defend and protect herself and any of her family members that would have been in that car. Guys saw that. Myself and another guy ran over there real quick to get that guy out of there, and he, of course, ran off real quick. But if we weren't there, who knows what would have happened, especially if she didn't have a gun. Guess what? Who knows? She may be dead. I don't know. But that is the purpose of the Second Amendment, part of it.
Well, and Brian, what I love about that story too is that she did exactly what we would expect a person who is, demonstrating proper safety and safe firearms handling to do. She didn't point at the guy. She didn't just start randomly shooting. She didn't, just go out there and, cause a police scene with yellow tape and brass all over the place. She actually displayed it first and, basically indicated to the person that, hey, I'm in fear for my life. And if you don't back off, I'm going to defend myself. And so she did exactly the right thing. She didn't just start pulling the trigger and spraying bullets everywhere, and, like people do in the movies. And so that's exactly the kind of behavior that, safe gun handling training will produce.
Yeah, and speaking of that, talking about the movies, for those of you who are out there and not trained in buying pistols and rifles, well, mainly rifles, because you're not going to get a pistol that way unless you're buying it illegally. Some of you, like, I want to go into this with gun safety, because you're going to go out there and you're going to go and hold it sideways. You're not going to even know what way you're aiming the gun. So that's a big problem right there. So
that's my favorite thing to come across with a new shooter when I'm instructing, is when they do hold it improperly. And I asked them why they do that, and they say they don't know or they don't have a reason. And I know exactly what it was. They saw their favorite movie actor or TV actor holding it that way, and they think that's the right way to hold it. And then when I show them the reasons why you don't hold it that way, they feel kind of silly and get a little sheepish. But I've never had somebody go back to doing it after I show them the proper way and why it's the proper way. I've never had somebody go back to the Hollywood way, because it really is not a good idea.
No, it's not. And let's talk a little bit about what kids are going through now, too, with video games. I think these violent video games are very bad. I think they see a lot of this gore and blood and everything else, and they think it's part of life.
Well, it desensitizes them.
It does. And their parents do not want, how do I say it? Their parents just don't want to raise them. They're like, hey, here's a computer, here's a game, bye-bye, I got to go do other things. Now, not all parents are like that. Giving your child or kid an hour, something like that, have a little fun. Guess what? Not all friends are on the computer. I knew somebody once, his only friends, the only friends he had were on a computer. And that was it. He never even met them. I asked him, I said, does he go out and play baseball? Does he go out? No, he doesn't do anything. All his friends are on the computer. He stays up till 2 in the morning playing video games. And he was 14, staying up till 2 in the morning and sleeping in all day. Very bad example. Very bad example. Bad parenting.
Well, and then tie into that the wrong games, the violent games without parental supervision. There's a reason there's an age limit on some of these games, on movies that you go to see. And they say that, you need to be a certain age because, again, you get into the desensitization without the proper safety instruction. A kid walks up after watching a movie or a TV show, sees a gun sitting there and goes, oh, this is really cool. Well, guns can be cool if they're properly used, but a gun is no different than a screwdriver. They're tools. And if you improperly use a screwdriver, you can injure yourself or somebody else. And if you improperly use a firearm, you can injure yourself or somebody else. And so, the knowledge of how to use something like that is critically important.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% on that. So, any more on gun safety or guns? Because we'll go to another conversation.
No, but, I definitely just, I want people to understand that, the Second Amendment is critically important as well in the Constitution. I know that you and I had been talking about that.
Sure.
And so is that where we were going to head
at this point? Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
There's a whole purpose in the Constitution. Yep. It'll say, not to say we're doing that, I'm just saying it's good to know what it says.
Sure. Well, the interesting thing about the Second Amendment, in my opinion, it is the Second Amendment because the First Amendment granting you the right to freedom of religion, freedom of speech, critically important amendment to the Constitution, guaranteeing that all people are not to be silenced by their government. The Second Amendment, although it has the number 2 behind it instead of the number 1, in my opinion, should be pretty much 1A because it's just as important as the First Amendment. And without the Second Amendment, the First Amendment couldn't exist because the whole purpose behind the Second Amendment was to provide the people to defend themselves against a tyrannical government if our government ever went down the wrong path. And that's exactly how the Revolutionary War was able to happen, was that people were able to possess firearms, and therefore when a militia and then later an army had to be raised, the people were trained in the use, they were trained in the safety, and they also owned their own, and they didn't have to find some manufacturing facility to start making rifles, and people were able to defend their farms, defend their cities, defend their homes against the British at that point. So the Second Amendment is there to allow us the opportunity to defend ourselves against a tyrannical government. It also allows us to do things like what Brian witnessed in the gas station the other day and protect yourself. Because if we didn't have the Second Amendment and the ability to bear arms, then basically just the strongest and the biggest people out there, regardless of their temperament, regardless of their intelligence, would rule the world because they're the biggest and the strongest. And so there's another place where the Second Amendment is very important. And I have to tell you one thing about the Second Amendment that a lot of people don't think. Brian and I have talked about this between us and among other people as well. Too many people talk about the interpretation of the Second Amendment. And in reality, there's no real interpretation of the Second Amendment. If you're watching this and you don't know the exact words that are in the Second Amendment, I urge you to pull out your phone, look it up, grab a copy off your bookshelf. The Second Amendment, folks, is 27 words. It is 2 sentences. It is not complicated. It is not difficult. It is very clear. And, basically it is not really open to interpretation. I hear people all the time say, well, does that mean that I should be able to go out and get an artillery cannon? Well, no, because it says the right to keep and bear arms. If you're big enough to carry around an artillery cannon, well, maybe you should have one. I don't know, but I don't know anybody that can. So
I'd like to see somebody do that. That'd be...
But with the Second Amendment, and so what Brian and I did today, and Brian was talking about, we went to the range. We were exercising not only our rights as citizens, pursuant to the Second Amendment, but we were also practicing our responsibilities as responsible gun owners, and going out and making sure that we know how our firearms work and we know how to operate them safely, and to make sure that what we're shooting at is what actually gets struck by the bullet that comes out of the firearm. And those are responsibilities that we have. So although the Second Amendment grants us rights, it also comes with certain responsibilities, and I have no argument with that whatsoever. What are your thoughts on that, Brian?
No, I agree with you 100%. I was actually speaking with a range officer today, and he tells me he gets a lot of people in there. He says at least 2 to 3 times a week he's standing there because people have not had proper gun safety. He actually has had people aim loaded guns at him as he's standing behind them, and he's like, whoa, no, you can't do that. So this is where you go there and you get proper safety instructions. You need to take classes. So before you even purchase a gun, that goes for rifle, pistol, anything. You should go out, get classes, know how to handle these things, because they can be great, but they can also be dangerous if in the wrong hands, if you don't know how to handle them.
I fully agree. And to that point, it's kind of funny. Brian knows that I have shot a great deal in my life, and I've probably just target shooting. I've probably put more rounds downrange than a lot of people will ever do in their lifetime. And some of that was work when I was in the military, and some was just for fun as a civilian. And today, I was trying out a new rifle that I built, and I had it down there, and they have a minimum distance that you need to move your target away from you, so that when you're shooting, that you're not shooting across into somebody else's lane. And so even as many rounds as I've shot, with my excitement with the new rifle and getting ready to shoot it and try it out, and because no matter how good you are at building something like that, until it goes bang the first time, you're not sure you did it the right way. So I sat down, and next thing you know, I hear somebody behind me saying, wait, and it was Brian. I hadn't set my target out far enough. So somebody that even has the proper knowledge, the proper training, the proper safety background can still make mistakes. So if I can make a mistake, think about the mistakes that somebody that has absolutely zero training can make. And so I fully agree with Brian that if you're a new firearm owner, that probably before you buy the firearm, like Brian was saying, go out and get some training. And one reason that would be important is it might keep you from buying the wrong one, which, that can be wrong too, because if you buy the wrong one, it might not feel right in your hand. It might not work right for you. So, it's like having proper training lets you, learn to even make the proper selection.
Yeah, just because the gun looks cool doesn't mean it's going to work properly in your hand. You may find the gun, it may not look as cool for you young people out there. But guess what? It will work properly, and that's what you're after. You're after a gun that's going to shoot accurate. I have shotguns myself. Some that I'm like, I don't like the feel of this gun, but it looks cool, but I don't like the feel of it. Yet I've shot some really guns that are like, it's not that, but it's much better shot for me. It fits my hand right. And that's the things you need to learn with gun safety and getting the right gun.
Actually, definitely. Brian, I want to throw one thing
Sure.
in there too. We were talking about the Second Amendment a few minutes ago, and I was talking about how important it is, and in my opinion, how black and white it is. The one thing that I want to throw out there, because this is probably the most misunderstood part of the Second Amendment, is in the Second Amendment, it mentions how important a militia is, to our country and to the security of our country. The one thing that's most misunderstood is so many people read that and think that you must belong to a militia to own a firearm, according to the Second Amendment. But in reality, the way that that's written, what it is saying is back in the times of the Revolutionary War, War of 1812, and subsequent wars, what would happen is the citizens would be armed, and therefore a militia would have to be raised because we didn't have a giant standing army like we have right now. And so therefore they would have to call on the citizens, and citizen soldiers would come together and they would be formed into a militia. Had the citizens not had firearms, there would be no way to form a militia, and therefore our country would not be what it is today and what you recognize today. And so I just want people to understand that when you look at the Second Amendment, there's reasoning behind the words, and that's why it's so important that it's not interpreted, that it's basically taken as written.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that. It's definitely 100% on that one. Anything else on gun safety?
No, I think we pretty much covered that. And it's like, but obviously, if you did need any more information on gun safety, you can check with gun ranges. There is a just plethora of information online about gun safety. The only thing I would caution you on about going online and looking up gun safety is if it's something that you're not already fairly well versed in, you're not sure if what you're reading is proper or not. So I would always recommend getting with somebody who is either a professional or is well versed in it, and do some face-to-face safety training, before you do anything else. I wouldn't just, I know that, hey, it must be true, it was on the internet, bonjour, I'm a French model, so, but I would recommend face-to-face in person with somebody that knows what they're doing.
That's correct. And don't believe everything you see or hear on the internet, guys. That's for sure. So I want to get into this one more thing I want to mention. If you notice, where are the most crimes going on right now? Where?
Places? Cities that have really restrictive gun laws.
That is correct. Because if you think about this, guys, if Biden were to step in, I call him Weak Biden. That's my new name for him, by the way. Weak Biden. And then we got his vice president, Giggles. I call her Giggles. That's her new name. Giggles. That would be her. So that being said, though, these things are going on in those cities. And if you say we're going to ban guns, guess what? People are going to still get guns no matter what, because people know how to build guns. They're going to come in black market. They're going to be here illegally. At that point, what are you going to do? How are you going to actually find this gun is registered to an owner of a gun? And for example, I have guns. Mine are all registered. But if you have a gun out there that's not registered, how are they going to track it to that person? Just a thought.
Well, not only that, we're not the only country in the world that manufactures firearms. And
True.
So since we're not the only country, things get smuggled in here all the time. Drugs get smuggled in. Illegal things of all natures get smuggled in. And believe it or not, some of you might laugh at this, but illegal car parts, so that people don't have to pay taxes on them. Illegal alcohol, so that the taxes aren't paid. So if we're smuggling in alcohol and car parts and knockoff clothing that says Polo on it, but it wasn't really made by Ralph Lauren, it's like, don't kid yourself that firearms wouldn't be smuggled in as well. And so, that's, if we remove the right of the American people to own firearms, what we're doing is removing the ability of those same people to provide themselves a safe environment in their homes and wherever else they need to provide that safe environment for them and for their families. And so the other thing is, whenever we hear about these cities, one of my favorite conversations was a few years ago. The mayor of Chicago was blaming the gun violence in Chicago on the fact that they were right next to Indiana, which is a state that has, just basically Second Amendment gun laws where you can go into a gun store and buy a gun as long as you're not, a convicted felon. So he was blaming all the gun violence in Chicago on the fact that they were right next to Indiana. People could just jump across the state line and buy a firearm in Indiana and bring it back to Chicago. And the person that was on the other side of the interview said, well, then why don't they have a gun violence problem in Indiana? Think about that one.
Good point.
So, like what Brian was saying, is like a lot of these cities with the most restrictive gun laws are the ones that have the most problem, because the criminals know that they can get away with just about anything because the average citizen can't defend themselves. Because let's say that I live in one of these cities where there's extreme gun violence and there's also very restrictive gun laws. If I have a gun, I have just now made myself a criminal because the gun laws say that I shouldn't have one. If I use that to defend myself, I now find myself in court. Yes, I'm alive. I've saved my life, saved my family's life, and I might spend the next 8, 10, 12 years in prison just because I exercised my Second Amendment right. And that's what's so crazy about these restrictive gun areas. And that's why the criminals are so, basically running roughshod over everything, because, they know that none of their potential victims is armed.
And most of them are being run by Democrats.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Very true. Well, anyway, we're going to hang this part up right now. We're going to come back in a little bit, talk about one more thing. I want to get into Memorial Day. We'll do that. and we're going to take a little break here. But as always, I want to thank you guys for listening. I also want to thank our law enforcement. I want to thank our military. I want to thank our first responders. I also want to thank, again, our truck drivers and now our farmers. There's droughts going on throughout the country. The farmers are working really hard on this, getting things out there. But again, I spoke with a trucker the other day who was delivering gas, and he said that they are shorter drivers. They're having lots of issues right now, and he thanked me for just walking up and thanking him. So, guys, do that. When you see somebody out there at a restaurant, especially when it comes to anybody in the military or law enforcement or even first responders, please just thank them. That's all you got to do. Retired military, all of it. And if you can, buy their lunch, buy their breakfast. That's it. They're really nice people.
I've never had somebody when I do that, and I do thank police officers and firemen on a regular basis, and I have never had one of them act surprised, disappointed, or anything else. They're always very pleased, and they're very thankful that you're recognizing them and the work they do.
Yeah, and if you want to do that, do it discreetly. Don't have to tell them you bought their food. Just give the card and say, I'll come back and pick it up later. I've done that. That way, I always want to say, sometimes when you do that and you're saying, hey, I bought your food, you're bragging in a sense.
Right.
It's not supposed to be that way. It's supposed to be somebody did something for you. Thank you. All right, guys, just want to thank that. I'm going to go ahead and thank you guys, and we will see you in a few minutes. We're going to take a commercial break. Take care. And we are back from our break. That's what this is about. Common sense. So we know a lot of people don't have it. You're here with myself, Brian Harrison, and Jerry Dangler. So, if you guys want, you can go to my website, just-common-sense.com. www.just-common-sense.com. So, today we're going to talk about Memorial Day. Memorial Day was just about a week ago. I haven't been on the air for a while, but I did run into some things that day, and I would love to talk with you guys about it. First of all, what is Memorial Day? Do any of you know? Question. Nothing? No? Nobody knows. Some of you know. I know that. Okay, so coming from a Marine. Memorial Day is... You want to answer this? Go ahead if you want.
Absolutely. Memorial Day is the day that we've set aside on the calendar in the United States to recognize our war dead from the nation's wars since the United States became a nation. And it started briefly after the Civil War, and there was a group of women, and excuse me for this, I forgot the name of the organization, but there was a group of women that were decorating Union graves, and they felt that it was also appropriate to mark the graves of all the soldiers that had perished in that conflict. And so in the cemetery that they were marking the graves, and they marked the graves of the Confederate and the Union war dead. And that day started off being known as Decoration Day. And Decoration Day is a remembrance of the war dead that were serving their respective countries, and later turned into Memorial Day, because in the beginning, Decoration Day was the Civil War dead, and it later morphed into Memorial Day, which is recognizing the war dead in all the conflicts in our nation's history to honor those that did not return and gave their lives in the service of our country.
Yes, and that is information a lot of us didn't know. I actually learned something myself out of that. Thank you, Jerry. So I do want to mention some things that I asked some people on Memorial Day. I said, what is this day about? Mostly to the young people, 20-year-olds, 25 in that area. Well, the first one said, it is about the military. I'm going, oh, awesome. Well, what's it about? The military. Couldn't answer it. Second one said, it's about hot dogs and hamburgers and spending time with family. I am serious. This person said that. Did not have a clue what Memorial Day was about. So it is about, of course, what Jerry said. Memorial is there for a reason. What is memorial? It's about the fallen soldiers who gave the ultimate sacrifice to have you have your freedoms. That really is what's going on. They have fought in these wars, gave their lives for your freedoms. Now, I want to get into freedom a little bit. First of all, freedom of speech. We hear about it all the time. Okay, First Amendment, freedom of speech. Now, freedom of speech, I always want to say it comes with respect and morals. Respect and morals. The reason why I'm saying this because you see people out there burning flags, spitting on flags, stomping on them, everything else, especially at these stupid protests that are violent protests, some of which we know about with Antifa, some of the Black Lives Matter movement. Yes, first of all, I said for the Black Lives Matter, some are definitely doing this peacefully. I'm good with that. No problem with protesting peacefully at all. First thing when I said that, you know what you guys just said, especially a lot of you on the left. What about the Capitol? What about the Capitol? Well, we don't condone what happened to the Capitol. We don't condone it at all because you get, Jerry's going to talk about it in a minute, but you get a couple individuals that started ramping things up. And then, of course, you got some other people who were in that group going, what do we do? Should we follow them? I guess that's what we're supposed to do. Well, no, they're just as wrong for doing that too. So, but remember this, guys, when you're out there and you're burning that flag, you are stomping on that flag, you might as well be saying that these people that are in those graves right now, you're stomping on their graves saying, I don't care what you did for me for this freedom. That's why it's called morals and respect. So keep that in mind. Remember, I mentioned this where my father came down. He actually saw the flag after he got hurt in war. Saw it and felt like he was safe at home and getting right there because he saw those colors of the flag. He saw those colors of the flag and felt protected, realizing he left his brothers behind now, the ones who got shot in front of him. War is hell. It really is. I've not been there. I can't imagine. For those of you who have not been, you don't understand how bad it is for these guys. They don't want to talk about what they did in war. They just did their job. They really did, and they really don't want to talk about it. You have any thoughts on that, Jerry?
Absolutely. Basically, even though I have been in combat and was involved in one of our nation's wars, I saw nothing near anything as grave as what your father went through. And because I've studied the area that your father was in Korea and the battles that he was in before I even knew you and knew that your father was there. And, so my hat's off, my respect to your father, absolutely. But also to all those that were with him, especially, and Memorial Day goes back to the ones that he did leave behind because, they did not make it home to, spend time with their families. And that's, something that we do need to show a great deal of respect to. And one thing that was very interesting when you were just talking a few minutes ago about the people out there protesting and burning flags and how it's basically like stomping on the graves of those that went before us that gave us these freedoms. Not only is that on the money and 100% true, but what a lot of those folks that are doing that don't realize is that they're doing that to their own predecessors that passed on in the service of our country. So many of those people out there aren't even thinking about the fact that they have somebody in their family who came before them that gave their life in the service of this country. And so basically what they're doing is they're spitting on the grave of their own family member who, gave their life in the service of our country by doing what they're doing. And so I'm with you. I'm 100% about peaceful dissent, peaceful protest. If you want to, First Amendment, one of the things is redress of grievances with government. And sure. I'm all about that as long as it is peaceful. And so, and I laugh about the January 6th thing because it was like you said, a couple of people walked in the door and then a few other people were standing there and like, well, everybody else is going in. Maybe I should too. And there's probably not a one person out there that's watching this right now that at some point in your life hasn't seen a group of people walking through a door and thought, oh, maybe that's where I'm supposed to be. And you just follow the crowd. And I have a feeling that on January 6th, although there were some bad actors out there, that most of the people that wound up walking in just were like, oh, wow, yeah, everybody's going in. That's where I should be. And then they got inside and were like, holy cow, I'm walking around in the Capitol building. I was like, this is really cool. And I think that the vast majority of people that were there that day that entered the Capitol didn't have any ill conceived thoughts of, destroying the building or, hurting Congress members or anything like that. They were just kind of following along with the crowd.
That's true, and you did have some bad people there. But again, I agreed.
And I don't disagree with that. There
No.
were some bad people, but this was not the end all be all. This was not another American Revolution. This was not an overthrow of the government. And I mean, it's I just only small-minded people would believe that.
You and I were,
in my opinion.
Yeah. No. You and I were talking about something today. You were talking about another capital that actually got raided.
Well, actually, yeah.
ahead
A
and
few
talk
years
about
ago, a large group of people on the left disagreed with some decisions that were about to be voted on and made in Wisconsin, and they actually took over the Capitol and camped in the Capitol. And I would have to look it up, but I want to say that they were there for over a week, literally sleeping in there, bringing food in. The government finally had to bring in like porta-johns and things like that. But these people literally took over the Capitol building and possessed the Capitol building and kept the government from operating in the state of Wisconsin. And so, but we don't talk about that. And we're not talking about going back and prosecuting those people. And those are people that actually stopped the operation of a state government.
That's true. And let's
kind of a
look
double standard, it seems.
Well, I mean, we looked at something else that happened. What happened in Washington? I think Washington State, where they closed a whole city block down or two, and they took over the police department and everything else. Well, guess what? That's bad too. So see, there's a lot of bad going on out there. There's a lot of bad things going on.
And bad is always bad.
That's true.
And and that's one thing that people need to remember. Bad is always bad, but if you're doing it, within the confines of the laws, and then basically that's how progress gets made. But once you start getting violent, then you've really kind of given up any rights to claiming the moral high ground.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I want to bring up something that happened Memorial Day. We're going to go back to that a little bit. First of all, we have our so-known Vice President Harris. Well, what did she say that day? What did she say? She said, have a great 3-day weekend. A great 3-day weekend. After she got some flack from everybody, then she came back and spoke about the military a little bit. So far, she hasn't done her job. She has gone to the border. She hasn't done anything she's supposed to do. She's gone, I forget how many, 80, 90 days. It's crazy, without a press conference at all. All she could do is sit there and giggle. And you know what? That's her new name. We're going to give her the name of Giggles. That will be her new name. That is out to you, Vice President Harris, who's not doing her job, doing a very bad job for this country. Also, we're going to talk about Joe Biden. What is he doing? Nothing. He's doing nothing. Now the origins are showing from the coronavirus. It may have come from a lab. I had my suspicions on this when it started. It's been a weird virus. But China's doing all this stuff. I call him, some people call him Sleepy Joe. I call him Weak Joe. Weak Joe Biden. That's my name for him. He's not doing a thing out there either. We just got attacked by another Russia hacker just recently. Not much has been said about that. Nothing at all, hardly at all, because Joe has not done a thing about it. But it just shows the way the government's going up there. They're weak. They're just not doing their job right. They're giving out free money. The only thing Joe said the other day is he said, oh, guess what? Jobs are getting better. The economy's doing great. Well, guess what? People are going back to work. That's what's happening. You have all these people that were at home, on furlough, unemployed. Well, they're going back to work. And that's really what's happening. Joe's trying to take credit for that, like he's trying to take credit for the vaccine. No, Warp Speed started that vaccine. He should give credit where credit is due. Donald Trump actually started that whole thing. Joe should have said, thank you, President Trump. We're going to take over, and we really appreciate the work you did. Now, that is a true president that would say something like that and give credit where credit is due. Gives no credit to anybody but himself. And I don't even know if he's running the government. There's been all kinds of talk out there right now. There's been rumors that Obama's been running it and all this. But again, you know how I am. Until I have facts, I got to see it. But that's been going on. A lot of people are talking about that. What's your thought on all this, Jerry?
Well, to be fair, with Joe Biden not thanking President Trump for what President Trump did, I'm not even really sure if Joe Biden remembers that Trump was president before him. So, that's now, all kidding aside. I agree with Brian. I believe that it would have been the proper thing to do to recognize the achievements that came before that have allowed President Biden to do the things that he's doing, and it really shows a lack of integrity to do that. And but as far as what Brian said about who's really running the government, I've got my concerns as well. And when you look, here's a guy that when he ran his campaign sat in his basement, got upset that geese were walking around outside the open window one time when he was doing a Zoom call down in South Carolina, said, "Hey, my name's Joe Biden. I'm running for U.S. Senate," when he was running for president. This is a guy that's not all there. And anybody that doesn't believe that is not paying attention. And, so I look at that. I guess my favorite thing to say is I've asked a few people that I know that voted for him to list his accomplishments since he's been president, and they cannot list one, not one. And that should be concerning to a lot of people, because at a time that we're going through right now, we've got a pandemic, we've got high unemployment, we've got inflation on the cusp because they're starting to print money for all this stimulus money they gave out. They're starting to print more money, which is going to create inflation. And so we've got inflation on the horizon, and basically we've got high unemployment. We're coming out of a pandemic, and we've got a president that took over at a time when he could have shone like a bright, shining star, and nobody can list one major accomplishment.
Except for giving out free money and keeping people unemployed where they want to live off the government. Well, guess what? That stuff is getting shut down.
Yep.
It is being shut down as we speak. Guess what? Get off the couch. Quit eating the potato chips. Time to get back to work for you guys out there. I talked to a truck driver last week. He said they are short of truck drivers. Perfect time to go there, guys. Become a truck driver. Do something with your lives. Don't sit in mama's basement. Get off your butt and get out there and work. That's what should be done, because we're not going to pay for you anymore. It's over.
Well, Brian, I'll throw something else out there too. And Brian knows I travel a great deal for work, and everywhere that I go, whether I fly to another city, whether I drive to another city, there are help wanted signs, now hiring signs. I go into restaurants on a regular basis, and they're saying, "Hey, we're really sorry, we're short staffed, and so therefore it's going to take a while to get your meal out." So it's not that there's a shortage of jobs out there. And so, like what Brian's saying, go out there, get yourself employed, because what's going to happen if you sit around too long, then you're going to find yourself timed out as far as qualifications for a job when you go out to apply. And that's, unfortunately, a downside to all this stimulus money that's been thrown out there. We've made it to where people are making more money sitting at home than they would getting a job. But the problem is the money they're giving away is taxpayer money. But you can't raise tax revenue if people aren't working, because you can only gain tax revenue from people that are working. So if we keep everybody at home, it's monopoly money. It's paper. That's all it is.
That's true. Money doesn't grow on trees. So, any other questions? Anything else?
Not at the moment.
All right. Well, what about Labor Day? We were talking about that. Explain it.
Memorial Day?
We went over Memorial Day. We're going to talk about Labor
Veterans
Day,
Day.
because Veterans Day, I'm going to see. Veterans Day.
Brian and I were talking, off camera before, and we were talking about the difference between the 2 days and how sometimes people conflate them. And, Brian had gone over, and also I spoke a little bit earlier about what Memorial Day is. And an easy way for you to remember the difference between the 2 days. Memorial Day obviously is in May, so Memorial May. You could do that if you're one of those people that likes using mnemonic devices. And then Veterans Day is in November. And Veterans Day is an easy way to remember, because Veterans Day is for veterans, those that are alive, those that are walking around that have served our country, whether in war, whether in peacetime, whether here in the United States, overseas. It doesn't matter. Veterans Day is when we remember all of our veterans. And then Memorial Day is when we remember our nation's war dead. And the easy thing to remember about Veterans Day as well is Veterans Day is always on November 11th. And with Veterans Day, it was basically agreed upon that an armistice was signed during World War I, and it was signed on the 11th of November at 11 a.m. So 11/11/11. 11 a.m. on the 11th day of the 11th month. And so that's another easy way to remember Veterans Day is 11. So Veterans Day is, like I said, to recognize all our currently, alive veterans and thank them for their service and recognize them. And that's a great thing Brian brought up earlier too. Hey, you know what? You see somebody out there, buy them lunch, buy them breakfast, buy them a cup of coffee. And frankly, you don't even have to wait till Veterans Day if you want to. You can do that at any time. And then, Memorial Day, though, is the day that we recognize our nation's war dead. And it's a much more somber and sacred day. And I'm not saying don't go out because it is a late spring, early summer kind of weather. I'm not saying don't go out and have your cookout and everything like that, but take a few moments, quietly reflect on, why we have, that day on our calendar. And for those of you that are watching, something that'd be very interesting to go look up the Missing Man Table. And the Missing Man Table is a remembrance of our POWs that never were returned from wars in foreign lands. And the Missing Man Table, there's an actual ceremony that goes with that about the families that are left behind to wonder what happened to those that never returned, and the fate of those that never returned also wherever they may be. So, but with Memorial Day, it's like I said, great weather. Enjoy it. Take that time, do something special, but also take a few moments to reflect and give thanks to the people that, made that day a date on our calendar of great importance.
Yeah, I just saw that performed, by the way, what you were talking about. It was very, very sad. Actually, my wife was with me. We were sitting there watching this, and she goes, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "I'm having a tough time." I was breaking down to see that. It's really a tough thing to watch, but very, very, very good thing. So, any other questions? Anything else? Anybody got any questions? Go out there and just go ahead and give me feedback if you would. And that's about it. We're going to wrap this up. Guys, go to my website, again, www.just-commonsense.com. Scroll to the bottom. The website's changed. Everything's changing now. You can go in. There'll be a podcast on there, so you're going to be able to turn on your radio in the car, turn on your iPhone or your Android, and go in there and say, "Hey, Brian's on podcast. There he is." And you get to hear my voice then and probably go, "Ugh." Especially my friends that know me. They don't want to hear me all the time. I talk too much. But no, go ahead and do that, guys. Please go ahead and subscribe to my YouTube videos. Share the YouTube videos. The reason why I want to go with this, because keep this in mind. I'm gearing up to run for Senate. I'm going to go for Tillis' spot. We already talked about that. People are coming to me saying, "I love what you say. I love what you say." Great. What are you doing about it? What do you mean, what am I doing about it? I love what you say. Are you sharing my videos? Are you doing anything? Are you subscribing to my YouTube? Well, no. And these are the biggest complainers. They're the ones talking, "Oh, this is bad. This is going bad. This is going bad." Well, guess what? See this wall back here? If you're not getting my word out there, you're talking to the wall. Is it listening? Is it talking back? I don't think so. You might be venting to the wall, but if you want help, you got to get me out there. Share, subscribe, give me advice. I want negative feedback. I want positive feedback. That only helps me to help you. That's the reason why I'm doing this. I'm not doing this for fun. Believe it or not, it is not fun for me. I am nervous about going out there running for Senate. I'll say it in many ways because I would rather spend time with my wife doing other things. But after my dad's passing, this really, really made me think about a lot of things, especially what we talked about. And I see a lot of military and stuff, what's going on, especially veterans and stuff right now. Veterans are scared. They're scared of what's going on, especially with Biden in office. A lot of stuff. I had a veteran talk to me the other day. He's saying he's having difficulty getting money, yet we're giving free money to everybody else. Exactly. Think about our veterans. Think about them, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's craziness, when we've got people literally breaking into our country and we're giving things to them, but we're not taking care of the people that helped provide the opportunity to have the laws that do protect us. And basically most of our laws are there to protect us. And I just can't imagine that anybody watching this would have somebody break into their house and they would say, "Thank you for breaking into my house, and let me go ahead and provide you a meal while the rest of my family sits back and starves while you eat the meal that I provide you because you broke into my house." So
that's true. That's a very valid point. Well, I'm going to have Jerry on the show. We're going to have other people on the show. We're going to be doing these podcasts. Try to do them weekly if I can. We'll see what I can do. You'll see me still go ahead and talking at night. I'll be doing this occasionally, throwing my own videos out there. Definitely go out there. Eventually, I'm going to have people who'll be able to call in, and they're going to be able to talk on these shows. That's what we're working up to. I can actually do it now. We are going to test this, see how this show goes. Definitely give me feedback. We will have phone lines out there, and we will see how that goes. Guys, we always want to say this. Every time I'm going to say this. Thank you for our military. Thank you for our law enforcement, first responders. Thank you for our truck drivers who are doing such a hard job right now, trying to take care of people not wanting to work because they are having a shortage of truck drivers right now. Also, thank the farmers out there right now. There are droughts going on right now, and these farmers are having a tough time getting their crops up and running. Well, that's going to come back where Joe Biden's going to say, well, we'll take care of them. And if he could, that's great. That's the people we need to take care of. We need to take care of businesses, small businesses, things like that going on right now that can employ these people and get them back to work. I recently saw a sign at a restaurant. We will pay you $500 sign-on bonus if you come work for us at a burger place. Wow. I'm seeing a lot of that. I'm seeing help signs up everywhere. The free ride's over. It's over. It is time to end this. So that being said, guys, God bless you. God bless America. God bless all our law enforcement, military, and also all these first responders and everybody else. Love you guys. Take care, and thank you, and have a great, great day, and I'll be talking with you soon.